Hey, Stanley, we're live. How are
Yay,
you?
I'm
How are
great.
you?
It's good to see you, Ching.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So, we are going to have a really, really fun chat today. And so, do you remember how we met?
I do.
Yeah,
So we met at a concert at that piano studio uh,
right,
in New York.
right.
And that was a lovely recital. And I don't know how you knew her and I knew her, but we both wound up in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, I met Sherry at the clubhouse, actually.
Oh,
Clubhouse.
okay.
Yeah, it's a clubhouse is it's an app. It's a voice app. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, actually I met a lot of interesting people. Yeah. So tell me, you are a composer, and also not only you're a composer, you also had other interesting occupation. So tell us, how did you become a composer? Did you always like love music and wanting to write music and express your artistic thing through the composition?
Uh-oh, that's a big question. I could go on for a long time.
Uh-huh.
So uh, let's break that question apart. Did I always love music? As long as I can remember. And actually, my real interest in music was piqued because my mother took me to Carnegie Hall when I was 6 years old. And I once went back and looked to see what was on that program because all I remembered was La Mer. But it turns out it was one of the Bach um, concerti, a Beethoven symphony, neither of which I remember,
Mm,
and then La Mer, which I remember vividly as a 6 year old.
wow.
We were way, 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 way up in the topmost balcony,
Hmm.
and all everybody looked around this big,
Mm, yeah.
and I was just awestruck by the sound of the sea washing over me, all those little people, and I begged and begged my mother for music lessons, who kept saying, "Nope, you're too young, you're too young," and I kept saying, "Nope, I'm not. I want to start." And that's when I started piano lessons. So, and all for the rest of my life, music, you know, for different people, it's different things that float their boat. And through all the trials and tribulations everybody who lives goes through, you have to cling on to something to keep you going. And for me, that was always music um, from the earliest age.
So
And then I went,
that, yeah. So this also is an example of how important exposure, right? Exposure. So you were exposed by your parents take you to the concert, and
exactly.
if there's no such exposure, and if they take you to a baseball game, maybe you'll fall in love with the baseball. So it's
I think it's a two-way thing because, yes, it was necessary for me to have the exposure, but I got taken to baseball games too, and I never fell in love with baseball. I was always indifferent to it. But so it went two ways. Yeah, I was exposed, but that it was coming back in the other direction. I heard that, and it just struck a chord in me that has been reverberating ever since. So,
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, speaking of music style, and how would you describe your style?
um, in one sense, I joke and say that I was born 500 years too late. Um, a lot of my music is influenced by late medieval and Renaissance music. I just adore the timelessness of the counterpoint in that music and in early vocal music. So, whatever. Machaut, Dufay, Josquin, Obrecht, Palestrina, on and on and on. I just adore that music. And in my own interest in terms of studying music, I spent a lot of time working on my counterpoint. And in the same way that Bach worked on his, um, going to the same types of studies and doing the same kinds of exercises. So it was something that I wanted to master. And while if you listen to my music, I don't know if anybody would think immediately of the Renaissance. Um, uh, but on the other hand, it's all in there.
That's wonderful. We're going to listen to some of your music. When we talk about Renaissance, it's a period of after, I would say, uh, early music and Renaissance time starting, just starting, like use more instrumental and starting to use more polyphony, right? Before
Right.
that, it was very mono music. Yeah. And, um, and do you use much vocal or and you use compared to vocal music and instrumental music, and do you do both or you do one of them more?
Uh, I write a lot of I write a lot for voice. So over the years, I've written hundreds of songs. Um, but that's primarily because I love poetry too, and I have a huge collection of poetry, and that I constantly flip through looking for material for songs, and I just find the sound of the human voice really emotional. And in a lot of my writing for instruments, um, it's their human qualities that interests me the most. So, for example, I've written a lot of music for viola. And why does the viola appeal to me in particular? And you should appreciate this because you are a violist. Um, the viola is right in the range of the human voice, from like a sort of medium baritone voice up through mezzo soprano is where the viola is rich. And so to me, it conveys that same emotional content that you get from a singing human voice.
Yeah, a lot of people including me falling in love with viola is because the tone, the sound, it's not as high as viola, so they say it's closer to human voice. But I need to say it is actually harder to play the viola. um, Although repertoire wise, uh, violists don't usually get lots of a solo section, right, in the string quartet or in the orchestra.
Except in mine.
Yeah, so we're like the step child of
Right.
string instrument, because the range is such, pretty much is a bridge between violin and cello. So, but we're gonna listen to. How about we're gonna listen to a work? It's called the Four Elements. Uh, that's for viola, right, and
String orchestra.
string orchestra. Yeah. So let's hear uh, this. Let's see. Let me pull out. So tell us a little bit about the solo violists, which um, you always write music for him, and
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
So I don't know which movement you're playing, but the four elements are named. It's one of my earth pieces. Are
uh,
named after the four ancient elements: earth,
uh,
air, fire, and water.
yeah,
Um, and I wrote that because the violist Brett Dubner, who's just a great violist,
yeah,
and, uh, uh, reached out to me, having heard some of my music online,
uh-huh,
to write a concerto for him, and I wrote
uh-huh.
this,
Okay,
and he premiered it a while ago,
yeah.
and we've been working together ever since.
So this is from your website, the
Yeah,
first movement Earth, and then
Right.
second is air, and three is water, four is fire. Which one you wanted to share?
It depends what you have time for. I think uh, Earth is the longest.
Uh,
Maybe,
Maybe water, because
yeah, yeah,
we
sure, water, because
we
that's a short
usually
one,
play
and it
short
just flows. Yeah,
excerpts.
so do water.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, yeah, I hear this theme. Would you call this theme? Da-da-da-da-da,
Yeah.
da-da-da-da-da-da. It comes
Mhm.
back and back, right?
Yeah.
So this refer. I guess that's refer to water, right? Or
That's
not?
it. It's that flowing theme.
Flowing theme. Yeah,
Just sort of imagine,
yeah.
you know, a little mountain stream, you know,
Right, right. And it's
bouncing off rock.
your the titles remind me a little bit about like Chinese saying 水木金星 water uh, wood and yeah, gold and something else. It's just like it's all so tell us about how does these each piece has a name, like where are these coming from? Is it coming from nature, I guess, right?
Well, I usually name lots of pieces, but that's because um, it's rare that I just write music disconnected from anything else, just pure music. So every once in a while, yeah, I've called something a sonata or maybe a serenade or something like that. but mostly the sort of impulse that gets me writing music is something outside of music. So it might be a poem, it might be a book, it might be something in nature. Um, and somehow or other, once that gets into my head, all the notes just come popping out. I think about it and I just start hearing lots of notes that go, oh, yeah, that's that. You
Yeah.
know, it's like a
Yeah.
translation.
Yeah, so we a lot of time instrumental music, classical music doesn't have sort of a title, so let you just interpret however you want, right? So yeah, so but when you have a title and when you have like a song which you have uh, lyrics or opera,
Yeah,
and
right.
that sort of leads you to the story, right? Otherwise, how do you interpret Beethoven Symphony 7, and here and there, and you can imagine any way you want to, right? For audience.
Right. But six is called the pastoral
Pastoral,
symphony.
right. Six has a title, right, right,
Even has a good storm in it.
right. Number three actually has a title too, right?
Exactly.
There's some,
So,
yeah.
so he certainly thought about
Hmm.
things outside of music when he was writing music and was trying to convey something else
Hmm.
that was often either philosophical
Right.
or, some idea about, the world that he lived in.
Yeah. So speaking of writing music, do you think about have an idea for a long time and then sitting down write, or you like during you're doing something else, all of a sudden you thought about something and you just sit down to write? So how usually the creation process go?
Um, I am lucky in that music just keeps popping out as soon as I have an idea. I write really fast. Um, I remember when I was working, um, I'd be in the middle of meetings, totally focused on the subject at hand, and suddenly realize that somewhere in the back of my mind, like subconsciously, there was a melody going on. And all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's back. And then I'd have to shove it out because I was concentrating on something else. So, there are melodies often going on in the back of my mind. Just, our brains are complicated things and we may not be able to consciously multitask too well, but our brains do. Um, so ideas come fast. But once I start writing, the music just pieces together. And I think that's partly just technique, practice like anything else. The more you do it, the more ideas flow and they flow more readily. So, like, I sometimes read so and so wrote a symphony. It took him 2 years. Um, I've written a bunch of symphonies and they take me 2 months. It's a lot because I just sit down and I write measure after measure. They just come.
Do you write music with a pen on sheet music, or do you do it?
Oh, thank God, no, not anymore.
No?
I used to. It was torture, and it was especially bad when it came time to writing parts because I had very little time. I'd find myself writing parts when I was really exhausted, and then I'd take it in for people to play and find out that I'd accidentally skipped a line in the score or done something egregious that screwed up the parts. And once the software came out, that was the equivalent of word processing, but for music. And for me, that was Finale. And I don't even remember how many years ago it's been. Um, Once that came out, I was all in, hook, line, and sinker. I never turned back.
So
I can
so you use Finale.
I use Finale, yeah, and I can write using Finale much faster than I can write by hand. And then when I'm done and I'm creating parts, I don't worry about it. The parts, they just It's a computer. It doesn't make mistakes.
Mm.
All I have to do with the parts is a little bit of editing to make them, page turns easier or other things like that. But I can just print them out, email them to somebody. They print them out, put them on stands, and everybody's playing, and I don't worry about it.
Mm. So, composers, um, one thing I think composers has to deal with is once you write the music, and especially orchestra, right, part, and how do you deal with getting somebody to play your work if it's orchestra work and all these people you of course you contact the conductor or maybe the organization. So is it such a challenge for you to, because you write music, you cannot just sing it or even conducting it, so you need people work for you. How does that work?
Oh, well, it works hit and miss. Uh, you nailed the problem for every composer, which is you write, and if you're sitting around waiting for commissions, you never write anything, um, except for a lucky composer here and there. Um, but for the rest of us, you know, everybody has to solve that problem, I guess, in their own way. My solution to that has been I write whatever I feel like writing, and then I worry about finding somebody to play it after. And I use social media extensively to reach out to people. And sometimes I get a hit. And it's like anything else. When you start knocking on doors, you knock on 100 doors, and maybe one person answers. And so some of my orchestral pieces have had some performances, and the rest we just not waiting for anybody to perform them. I'm recording them myself. So I think we might have talked about this, but in May I was in the Czech Republic because I engaged an orchestra and did a recording of a short 20-minute symphony, um, which I'll be releasing as like an EP um, towards the end of this month. I'm just waiting for the master files to come in. Um, and I'm going back in September and recording a huge piece for orchestra and viola with Brett as the soloist in late September. And I'm going to keep going. I have plans to record as much of the music that I've written as I can manage to record, and however much time I've got left to me.
That's wonderful. I cannot wait to hear. I actually I forgot how I met Brad. We actually used to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and he has been very, very active performing concert and still play with the New Jersey Symphony, right? So
Right.
he's one of these very consistent and constantly produce, constantly performing. That is really pretty remarkable, right?
Oh, it is. I joke with him because I call him my social media guru, uh, because he seems to have mastered the art of how to promote his solo career and get gigs all around the world. He does it all himself. He reaches out to people. He's like you. He uses this his iPhone. He records everything on it, makes these little videos, edits them, and boop, they're out on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. And he does it. He's fantastic at it. I'm always amazed by him.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
he's very. I always see him. Most of the time, I see him on Facebook. So
Right.
yeah, he's very active, and for artists or any type of artist, most of us we create um, our art and craft our art, and we're not that great in marketing. or in promote ourselves, right?
Right.
Which I think it's a skill that could be improved for many artists. And also you need to really have this drive. I just think some people, they don't have time, and they really could
Mhm.
not, right, devote themselves to, and they, some of them, they hate uh, social media. I don't know about you. Are
You know,
you good at social media?
well, that's an interesting question because social media, of course, can be a cesspool. It can just be awful. Um, but I also found that through, especially Facebook, more than anything else, I've made and met some really people who are really valuable friends to me. Um, and uh, in a way that could never happen if it were not for social media. People from across the world who are the equivalent of what in the old days might have been called a pen pal, but instead you communicate via messenger and through comments. And I've met poets who I've collaborated with, other musicians who I've collaborated with. Um, the album that I came out with this year, for example, was a collaboration with an early music group um, called Pandolfus Consort. And their founder, um, Elisachka, we met through social media. And I happened to catch her at a time when she was interested in expanding beyond playing early music and was interested in having new music written for her ensemble. And I started, and I've been writing for her for 10 years. And the album that she produced a beautiful album. And it's all of the music that I've written for her over the past decade. And that was all through social media originally.
Yeah,
And
that's
then
wonderful.
we became friends. I've been to Vienna a whole bunch of times
Yeah.
to do music with her. And we've become good friends.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
It's great.
Uh-huh. And among all the social media, would you say you use Facebook more, or which one you use more?
Well, I sort of, whatever I'm posting, whether it's links to my website or links to YouTube videos that I make, I post them on everything.
Uh-huh.
But I tend to use Facebook more
Yeah.
because it has groups.
Yeah.
And that's a LinkedIn has groups too, but not nearly as many.
Yeah.
Facebook has these groups with enormous memberships.
Uh-huh.
On if I write a cello piece or a cello concerto, there are all these cello groups that have tens of thousands of people in it. So we can
Oh.
post on them. Uh, so if I write a song that sets work of a particular poet, like Rilke, who I write a lot of, I've said a lot of Rilke. Um, you go to there's a Facebook Rilke group, and it has thousands of members.
Yeah.
So you can share all these things with people, and instantaneously reach people who share a common interest. Um, and Facebook, I think, is much. You can't do that on Twitter,
Instagram.
or Instagram. Just doesn't have those kind of links.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. For groups, for forming, I join a lot of Facebook, like filmmaker, New York filmmaker, and then if you have a question, you can ask questions sometimes, and
Oh,
people will help you. Yeah, right.
oh, if you post something and ask a question, you'll get bombarded with comments.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of people will chime in.
Yeah.
It's really so that part of social media, I think, is wonderful because
Mm-hmm.
it can be a learning experience. You can meet all kinds of people. I,
Mm-hmm.
I've met a number of poets whose work I've set because I enjoy setting
Mm-hmm.
contemporary poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's, to me, much more meaningful when somebody's writing a poem for you to set. And there are several poets who I just know through Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, very good. So, do you mind tell us a little bit your other profession? Because do you mind, or it's
No,
a
I don't mind
secret?
at all.
Yeah.
So,
So
you
tell
know,
us, people sometimes uh, will say, um, yeah, people a lot of times people say I'm an artist, and then people say, "What is your real job?
right.
What is your real job?" Yeah.
So anyway, that is a reality of life for many of us.
Yeah.
But you know, I always loved music. I went to a music conservatory, but I went there. I didn't even apply to any of the colleges. Being I wasn't practical at all. Oh, I have to make a living. Well, how am I going to do that? I didn't even think about it. I just wanted to do music, but I didn't know or think about how I was going to make a living doing it. I just went to music school. I loved it. It was great. And then I got married, and then I had a son. And the instant he was born, it was like, uh-oh,
Now you have to feed somebody.
now I have to feed somebody. And at the time, I was teaching in a music school in the Bronx. I was giving private lessons. I was teaching at the prep division at Manhattan School of Music, and doing a little gigs. Sometimes I was a church organist. You know, I was doing all these little things. And it was like, this is insane. None of this is going to work. So I just stopped. I went and found myself a job uh, in an office originally through some friend of my mom's. I found the job. And then I went on to have a completely accidental career and discovered along the way that I had talents that I didn't even know I had. It
What?
turned out I was really good at managing people and
Oh,
really good at managing large projects. And from one job to another, I eventually wound up for 25 years at the Transit Authority. I wound up as a vice president there, running their contracts department and, you know, doing contracts for, you know, buying whole fleets of subway cars, of buses, of doing huge construction projects, spending billions of dollars of other people's money. Over the course of my time there, I must have spent $40 billion, you
wow.
know, awarding contracts for this, that, and the other thing. I was there a long time. And then I retired and went on to do the same thing with like a global engineering company.
Mm,
And it was totally unanticipated. I never imagined my life would go in that direction,
mm.
let alone imagine that I would actually enjoy doing that, that it would I would find it meaningful and interesting. And a lot of people take another direction. They go on and teach. And I never wanted to be a teacher. I was a teacher for a few years, and I didn't particularly like it. I couldn't imagine doing it for my whole life. I just didn't find it intellectually challenging and satisfying. And working on these really complicated projects where you're trying to herd cats, you know, and all these different stakeholders in these projects who all have to get aligned for something to happen. Um, I just found really interesting. I liked it.
Wow, that's wonderful. And you're very unique, your situation, right? And lots of composers or musicians or actors, they're struggling. They have to, audition for different roles. And there's a funny saying, if someone says, "I am," what do you do? And this person says, "I'm an actor." And then the next word is, which restaurant?
Yeah, right. That's the joke.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah, but
pretty.
for me, I wouldn't have been happy in a restaurant either. So, and my career took me into jobs that, in a way, um, the challenge for me was that as I got into more and more responsible positions, the amount of hours I was working. I
Yeah.
used to joke I'm working my way back to minimum wage
Uh,
because I would find myself working 60, 70 hours a week.
yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah,
And, you know, as intense as that was,
yeah.
when I got home,
Yeah.
it was like all I want to do is write a few notes of music. I
Yeah.
don't care if I just write 3 bars of
Yeah.
music. I'm going to write some music. And on the weekends, I would wind up working on weekends too, but then I would like have a few more hours. I would write more music.
Yeah.
So even at the height of as busy as I was, I would write 3 or 4 pieces a year.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And then when um, I finally pretty much, I'm not 100% retired yet. I'm still working a little bit.
You
I
are
do,
now?
yeah, still doing some consulting.
Oh, okay.
I work
Great.
about somewhere between 10 and 20 hours a week.
Wow.
But I used to work 60 or 70, so that's like 40 hours to myself.
Yeah,
I, I've written hundreds of pieces since I stopped working full time.
I
The
see.
music was just like, it was all dammed up in there for 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's come pouring out ever since, and it hasn't stopped yet.
Yeah. So you have a handsome website, and shall we play some more music? Which one you want to play
Sure.
on
And I
this
don't know
list?
what happened, but the last one,
Yeah.
um, at least from my end,
Yeah.
it didn't come through great. I know
Oh,
it sounds good on the website, but
okay.
through
Which one is the last one?
when you did water, when you played water, it sort of sounded like it was underwater at my
Oh,
end.
oh.
So I don't know if that's the best link to do. I'd also sent you some links to some.
Do you see it right now? I'm at your website.
Yeah, I see.
Can we pick one from this list right now?
Sure. So why don't you go into songs?
Songs. Okay.
Yeah. And what I have right up there is 5 Rilke songs.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So that's from my latest album.
Okay.
It's music. It, those are obviously they're Rilke songs, and I loved Rilke.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and it was for this group in Austria, so it's for a German-speaking audience that I wrote the music. And the group is Pandolfus Consort, which is early music. And playing on this is Ella, who plays the viola d'amore, which is this remarkable 14-string
Wow.
early instrument. It's a fantastic instrument.
Do you have a video of that?
Um, Not of her playing it. Um,
Okay.
so unfortunately
So,
not.
which movement you want to do?
So do
There's
the
five.
first one
Uh-huh.
because I think everybody
First.
it's one of Rilke's most famous poems, and it's about a panther pacing back and forth in his cage. And so you can hear the pacing in this repetitive pattern with pizzicatos in the cello
Mm,
and the viola d'amore playing these chords, which you can do on a viola d'amore and you can't
mm,
do on a viola because it has 7 strings that you
mm.
can, sort of fret and play at the same time. It's an
Yeah.
amazing instrument. So try that.
It's
And
like
the
it's like
and the
a.
singer is Lisa Rambach,
Uh-huh.
uh, who's a wonderful soprano.
Okay. And this was recorded where?
This was recorded in a studio outside of Vienna.
Wow. I'm going to Salzburg on Sunday, on
Oh,
Monday.
how wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's play that. And I'm gonna once it starts, I'm gonna pull us out of the frame. Well, actually, not necessary, but
It's not, yeah, there's no image with it. So.
Ist vom Vorübergehen der Sterne so müd geworden, dass nichts mehr hält. Ist, als ob es 1000 Stimmen gäb und hinter 1000 Stimmen kam Ist wie ein Tanz von Kraft eine Bitte. In dir betäubt ein großer Friede Manchmal schiebt der Vorhang, der Pupille sich lautlos auf. Dann geht ein Bild hinein, wie sucht der Gnädige angespannte
Yep,
That was
that's,
beautiful.
yeah, thank you.
Very. Now that's very Renaissance to me, right? Like a Renaissance
Yep,
time of song. Of course, your music is so much polyphony. I would say there's
yep.
many different lines going on.
Yeah, and
It's
in that also, because I'm writing for the Viola d'Amore,
mm,
um, you have to write for the instruments.
yeah.
Uh, and the Viola d'Amore, unlike the modern violin family, where
Mm,
the instruments are all tuned in fifths,
mm,
the Viola d'Amore has 7 strings that are tuned in a chord,
mm,
A, D, A, D, F, A.
mm,
So in order to make the instruments sing,
mm,
you really have to write in a much more uh, modal style,
mm.
without
What's
lot,
modal? What is modal?
like the ancient modes,
Uh huh.
Aeolian mode, Dorian mode,
Yeah.
Ionian
Uh huh.
mode, like
Yeah.
like a natural D minor scale,
Mm-hmm.
um, because that helps that instrument really sing.
Mm,
If you write a lot of chromatic notes for it, it just doesn't sound like it's nature.
mm,
It doesn't really sing.
yeah.
So you have to write music to match the instruments you're writing for.
So you met this player first. How did that work? Or you wrote it and then find somebody else to play because it's not usual, right? Have someone, in New York City, you just look around. I found a Viola d'Amore player. How does
Well,
that
I
work?
actually reached out to her online after hearing some of their music and
Oh,
asked if they'd be interested in, having me write new music for their early instruments. And,
oh, that's how
and
you
the
do it.
first piece I wrote for them were actually songs without words
Mm,
for viola d'amore, viola, a baroque viola, baroque cello,
mm,
and theorbo.
mm.
No, the theorbo is the bass in the lute family.
Oh,
It's got that same bowl shape as a regular lute,
mm,
only it has like a 4 or 5 foot neck with
mhm.
all these bass strings on it.
Is it
Uh,
plugging, or use a bowl?
excuse me?
Is it using bowl to play or plugging like this instrument?
Oh, plucking. Yeah. No, it's played like a lute. So it has a fingerboard with frets. So you're,
Mm,
fingering the frets and
mm,
plucking with your strings.
mm,
But then it has a chorus of a full octave of bass strings that go out the whole length of it. that you play with your thumb.
How do you spell this thing, please?
T H
T
E
H. Ah,
E
sorry.
O R T
Sorry.
H
Yeah.
E O R B
E
O.
O R B O. Okay. I never knew this. We can sometimes we can Google to see what it look.
Google it and show a picture. It's
Yeah.
just an incredible instrument.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
So
in the Baroque orchestras of like Louis XIV,
yeah.
the bass section were theorbo players. They would all
Yeah.
play in unison these bass lines.
Yeah.
Uh, and then, it went out of fashion and you wound up having modern basses and, uh, the modern string section.
Yeah.
But in that orchestra, the theorbo was the bass section.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, I wanted to thank some of our audience. Very thank you. We're very appreciative you're here with us. And let's see, Tech for Your Needs is Lewis. Lewis is has a website, has a not website, has a Tech for Your Needs YouTube channel, and he teaches people or answers questions about tech for your needs. So check it out. He's very techy. And then Shokfin Tech, another techie. He said, "She, 你好吗? And welcome to guest Stanley." So Sharkfin is also very techy, but he has a YouTube website about finance, and yeah, he's answers question, and yeah, and then we have want to see more. Want to see more? I think is my youngin friend. Always come to my show. And then we have a Donna Bera, I believe is your friend.
She
Hi.
is.
Hi,
Hi, Donna.
Donna.
Hey, Donna.
Yeah, Donna
That's so
said,
sweet.
yeah, it's also good for all your friends and colleagues to keep up with your new works. Sam,
Oh,
thanks for
that's sweet.
doing this.
Donna and I worked together in Philadelphia on this humongous project for Amtrak.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
You mean
it's so
you
nice to
mean
see her again.
not music, right?
Not
It's
music,
the
no.
transit. Yeah, transit.
It was one of the transit projects I worked on.
Yeah. By the way, speaking of transit, when you come to the city or when you do things around in the city, and since you're a transit person, do you take subway or do you take taxi?
Actually, since I live in New Jersey,
Uh-huh.
it's been a long time since I've been on a subway car
Oh yeah.
because getting into the city is a pain in the neck unless I just drive in. So I usually drive into the city and park where I'm going.
I
But
see.
I'm not on the subway nearly as much as I used to be.
Oh, I see. You used to be. Yeah, I was wondering, like when you work for them, and you must you must take subway, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
And I grew up in New York. I grew up in the Bronx. I've been
oh yeah,
in since I was a little kid.
yeah, yeah. And do you run into like you see problems like it's kind of under your territory, and then
If you don't mind me launching, and you just hit a sore spot because when I started working for the Transit Authority, it was in the mid '80s, and it was a catastrophe.
uh-huh.
That was this famous subway that was in movies. All the cars covered with graffiti, everything falling apart. And in the 25 years I was working there, we did a lot. Huge station renovations, new cars, new buses. We really transformed the subway. And I have to say, the powers that be, through lack of funding and all kinds of other reasons, really let it go to hell.
Yeah.
It's going downhill.
Uh-huh.
And it's too bad because there were a lot of really wonderful people who work for the Transit Authority who dedicate their lives to, providing good transportation for people, and I don't think they're appreciated.
Yeah, yeah. But I have to say, the subway system is improving. Although, when you look at I compare to Shanghai, I go back to China often,
Yeah,
and the Chinese people somehow they manage to keep that subway as neat as an airport. Airport. So it's very clean, and it. I think maybe it's just because the labor is so cheap, so they're able to hire people constantly clean, right? And
yeah. So
anyway,
I remember I didn't take the train when I was visiting China, but I was in Tokyo and rode the subway a lot while I was there, and it was exactly it was pristine. Um, every train ran on time to the second to the schedule.
yeah,
And to do that requires a ton of investment that nobody in America is willing to make.
uh,
Um, and secondly, it's just a different culture.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Americans are messy. What can you
Yeah.
say? That's just our nature.
Part of the reason is because the subway system is old. Because in New York, Shanghai subway
Right,
is relatively new, right? So it's more manageable, and the labor is cheap, much cheap, so they can hire people constantly clean. Yeah. The infrastructure in China, I have to say, it in many ways is very good. They're able to,
right.
to, I think it's a new, everything is newer. Yeah. So enough of transit.
This actually, we put this on as your interview with Stan Grill composer. And as soon as we started in, I thought they'd be hearing about trains and subways.
Yeah, yeah, trains. Yeah, so now tell us a little bit about. I know you have a recording project in Prague. Do you have any concert, live concert this year or next year?
So I have nothing live on my schedule right now um, that I can, not this year. Next year I do in Toronto. Um, I was supposed to have had a piece performed by a wonderful group called Sinfonia Toronto.
Mhm.
Um, that wound up getting canceled because of COVID um, this past year. They had a COVID spike, and that was so that didn't happen. But they're going to be playing a piece of mine next year. Uh, the, there's a wonderful mezzo soprano who they work with, who's of Turkish origin, and I set some poems by a famous Turkish poet for mezzo and string orchestra, and that's what they'll be performing next year. And I just had a piece premiere in July in, of all places, Yerevan, Armenia, because I wrote a piece for the, I don't know if you're familiar with the Armenian instrument called the duduk.
Mm,
Um, it's really a marvelous instrument.
mm.
And so I wrote a piece for duduk and string orchestra, and that was premiered. Oh, I see Ella is on. That's so nice to see her here.
How do you
Ella,
say? How do you say her name? Ella.
Elizabeth, but Ella for short.
Ella.
Um,
Hi, Ella.
yeah. So that's whose music we played. Ella
Uh-huh.
is the leader of Pandolfus Consort and the
Oh,
viola d'amore player on
what we
the
just heard.
what we just heard.
Oh, yeah,
She,
it's wonderful. It's beautiful. Yeah, we heard you play, Ella. Um, yeah, it's I think I've seen the instrument from far away. I never really see it closely. Actually, one year when I was in Indiana, I was trained. No, I actually am a violist. Now I'm a media person. I was really I was really bad opportunist because I know this Baroque orchestra. We have 7 orchestras in Indiana. Okay, symphonic orchestra, another symphonic orchestra, Baroque orchestra, and some other chamber orchestra, and modern orchestra, and jazz orchestra, whatever. So I knew they're coming to New York City next year. So I applied for to join the Baroque orchestra. So I played 1 year
Mhm.
Baroque viola, and then joined them first time. Visited in New York City. Yeah, that was like late '80s, and I was like, wow, this place is awesome. Just a little bit like Shanghai.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it's like, I didn't think I want to move here immediately, but I really, really liked New York. We performed in Merkin Concert Hall.
yeah, yeah.
Stanley Ritchie. Do you know Stanley Ritchie? Stanley
No,
Ritchie, oh,
no,
violinist. Yeah,
yeah.
he's the teacher of our awesome. So you have some concert, yeah,
And
going on.
early, yes, and that one in Yerevan was wonderful. And I'm now in the middle of writing more music for them.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's great.
for
Mark. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, for two duduks,
Uh huh.
the oud, which is that Arabic lute, and
Oh, Arabic.
another string instrument called the tar,
Yeah.
which is a three-stringed instrument. And
Oh,
I've never written for either of them ever before.
yeah.
But speaking of social media, YouTube, you can learn anything on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can go on and look up these instruments
Yeah.
and say, okay, how to play the oud. And sure enough, there's somebody who's giving you a lesson, a simple lesson in how
Yeah.
the oud
Yeah.
is strung, what the tunings are, how to
Yeah.
play simple melodies on it,
Yeah.
and enough for me to go, okay, now I know how to write for it. It,
Yeah.
you know,
I love
it's
you.
fantastic.
We call YouTube University.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think everyone, hopefully everyone, I don't think everyone, should utilize YouTube more. It's a Google when you want to find out what is what. And like I was trying to figure out how to put a locker our apartment with the number go on it, so you don't need a keyless, and just go on YouTube, and somebody is teaching you how to install, so you can pretty much learn everything. If my car stops in the middle of freeway, like the tire broke, I probably would pull out and look at YouTube.
YouTube on how to change tires.
Yeah,
So, in terms of writing for instruments,
yeah,
when I went to a conservatory,
yeah.
you learn how to orchestrate. So you learn about the instruments, you learn about the ranges,
Right.
and then, of course, if you're interested in being a composer, you to have to do what I did. You
Yeah,
listen
yeah,
to thousands of hours of orchestral music
yeah.
with scores in hand,
Hmm.
looking and seeing what the great orchestrators did.
Right.
So, Debussy, Rimsky-Korsakov, Ravel,
Mm-hmm.
um, Mahler.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a long, long list of incredibly great orchestrators.
Right.
And
Do you like
see,
Bruckner?
I love Bruckner. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bruckner gets trashed a lot by a lot of people.
Yeah, some people say that they don't like. I don't know
I
why they
don't get
don't
it
like.
at all. I find the Bruckner symphonies are so, it is like you could take off and soar into the universe among the stars.
Uh-huh.
And you just,
Philosophical, right? I can think of a
yeah,
word. It's very philosophical. Is
I
that a
close my eyes, follow the direction of his musical thoughts, and it's like I'm floating through the universe and through the
yeah?
cloud. It's just wonderful.
How do you compare Mahler with Bruckner? Like, to me, they're all huge orchestration, and it's fun to watch live.
Right. But to me, they're completely different in their approach. And um, well, I think Mahler's a fantastic composer, just from sort of like a spiritual sense. I feel I enjoy Bruckner much more than the Mahler symphonies. To me, Mahler is like that Viennese writing in the time of Freud. His music is like the interior of our brains. which are full of contradictions. You know, 1 minute he'll have this soaring melody, and then underneath it, some other, a flute or something, is playing a nonsense song that's almost like a farce,
Mhm.
like you're laughing at yourself.
Mm.
You know, and all the things that humans do, sometimes including extremely neurotic things, you know, are all going on in our brains all at once. And that's what I hear in his symphonies. When I hear Bruckner, all of that is strained out. He is just going after something that is so universal, so, like, he was a religious soul, but, and I'm not particularly religious, but he's going after something that's cosmic.
Mm.
And I think some people don't appreciate him because we're all trained to have short attention spans. And if you're going with Bruckner, you really have to set your time clock to a different dimension.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like his symphony is so long.
You just have to go with the flow and put aside a few hours and
Mhm. Yeah.
take a dive into deep space.
Right. No social media. No
Yeah.
TikTok. It's a 15-second. Now, Mark Shark fan has a remark for you.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I think I
Uh,
love that suggestion.
yeah.
So actually, it's funny he should write that, because in one of the jobs I had while I was at Transit, one of the first jobs I had, I was the administrator in a court, of all things, that held hearings when people got summonses on the subway for like fare beating or littering or whatever they got. I ran that courthouse.
Wow.
And
You're the judge.
I wasn't a judge. I was the administrator. I was the director, and we hired judges
Okay.
to, you know, to hold hearings. Uh, so another odd job in my crazy career. Um, but the funny thing is that we had a call-in system, and
Yeah.
when people called in to make appointments or they wanted to contest their hearing and they wanted to, come in for a court hearing, um, when they had music on hold,
Yeah.
I put my music on there.
Ah, how
Yeah.
convenient.
So people got to listen to some of my music. So
Yeah.
whoever way back, I don't know, this goes back 20 years,
Yeah.
happened to be on hold to the Transit
Uh-huh.
Adjudication Bureau, they might have heard some of my music.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. Nepotism. What is called like?
Yeah, yeah. For
Yeah.
myself, I put my own music on there. I ran the place, so I figured, what the hell?
Yeah. Yeah. Own
It,
thing.
it was better than that other horrible music on hold.
Yeah. So, by the way, speaking of YouTube, and Stanley has a YouTube channel, right? So you guys check it
Yeah.
out. Um, Also, let me see if I find. Oh yeah, and I have a YouTube channel, which is this one. So if you like the content, and check our YouTube channel, and your YouTube channel just call Stanley Grill, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. My YouTube channel is Juhl Media, and I have been doing this for quite some time, like since 2009.
Right.
And yeah, my YouTube channel is not very uh, focused all with all kind of things, interviews, videos, music, and film, and yeah. So check it out and subscribe
And
us.
subscribe, right.
Yeah, subscribe
Yeah.
us. Yeah,
And
but you know what? People say I've been going to Clubhouse a lot and learning how to do YouTube or TikTok or many issues. Meeting composers, meeting not too many musicians, filmmakers, a lot of filmmakers. And they said for YouTube, you don't really want people to subscribe you, but they don't watch your content. It's better to have people watch through the whole thing, and then that's better, I guess, better for algorithm, I guess. Do you know
yeah,
that? Because like if you tell everybody, right, say, oh, subscribe me, if they subscribe and they really don't like your work, that's kind of useless, they say.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. So you have your
YouTube
real audience.
is just another venue to get my music out there. But I
Yeah.
find on YouTube, again, a lot of times when if I look at the statistics for YouTube,
Mhm,
people start and drop off because they
mhm,
don't listen all the way through a music video,
mhm,
especially if it's long. They're not going to listen to a I get on YouTube and I will listen to an entire Bruckner symphony,
mhm.
but I think most people do not do that on YouTube.
Right, right. It's I think that
You
people
just
need to
flick
learn.
from one thing to another.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually let's see. I want to share a little bit of your YouTube channel.
We'll do one of the dance videos.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So this is your YouTube channel. It looks really nice. You have a nice cover. I guess that's called cover, right?
Right.
Is that Central Park?
No, that
Oh,
is from a photograph I took
yeah.
of a river in France.
Oh, excuse me. Nice.
My camera, that was a photo I had somewhere and I liked it.
Are you into photography?
Just on my camera.
Oh,
I'm, using my iPhone now.
oh, okay.
I like taking pictures.
Yeah, iPhone's great. I
And
made
the
a
other
whole film,
thing,
with iPhone. So which one should we play a little bit?
so if you go right to, are you on the home page?
Okay, hold on a second. I'll go to video. Okay, that's a lot. Oh, you use a lot of images with your music.
Yeah, I do, but go to playlists.
Playlists. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And go down to where it says dance collaborations.
Dance collaborate.
Because
Dance
this
collaborate.
past year, I decided I wanted to do more collaborating with others.
Okay,
And
this one.
don't that one's a little long. Go
Okay,
to remember, right? That shorter one, right there.
member.
Mariko, remember.
Oh,
The one above it.
remember. Oh, here.
No, above it. Go up. Where it
Oh,
says
this one.
Mariko, remember. Yeah, do that one.
Oh, remember. So who is Marco Ando Stan? Oh,
Mariko Endo is a dancer
uh-huh.
who I met
Okay.
um, through again an online group called Artists for Peace.
Yeah,
And I saw her work, and
yeah.
I really loved what she was doing, and I reached
Uh,
out to her.
yeah.
We've now collaborated. We've done 2 videos together,
Uh-huh.
and we'll actually be working on a multimedia presentation of my new symphony,
Mm,
which is called Ahimsa, which
mm,
is going to be presented at Trinity Church
mm,
in May of
mm.
next.
That's wonderful.
She'll be
Okay.
the choreographer.
Okay. Here we go. That was great. Visually very stunning.
Yeah, I love Mariko. She's great. She does this. She's trained in this form of Japanese dance called Buto, and those just strong movements and slow movements. I just find so powerful. And that particular music was written as part of my Music for the Earth series, and it was with Brett Dubner on viola,
Yes, I can tell.
Thomas Steigerwald, and the music was written as part of a suite um, with themes that were originally from a choral piece I wrote with poems about the earth and what happens to the earth if we do nothing about climate change.
Right.
Uh, and so that was themes from a poem called Remember by a poem of that same title, which calls on us to remember the earth and all the life on it and all our mothers, our fathers, horses, the birds that fly in the air, all of the life that surrounds us, that we're one and a part of that life.
Wow, that's beautiful. And how? Who is the videographer to make this? It's really
Um,
well shoot.
it's in the credits, and I'm sorry, I just can't remember his name right
Okay.
now
Yeah. Okay.
top of my head.
Yeah.
But in it, Mariko looks like she's part of the tree. She is the tree. She becomes the tree.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
and so I thought that I was really happy with,
Right.
the choreography and the video
Mm.
that they did to that music. It was
Hmm.
really
Yeah.
great.
Beautiful. Well, we are near our time to wrap up, and I started to adapt a clubhouse on the way we close our house.
Okay.
Sometimes we do hour, sometimes we do 6 hours. So um, we have a panel of people on stage, so-called stage, and so we usually say last words. Actually, before we do last words, would you like to do a short rapid fire? Meaning, I ask a question, you answer short. Like the
Sure.
question is short, answer is short.
Okay.
I mean,
Go ahead.
it can be funny, you know.
Try.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Uh, Hamburger or veggie?
Veggie. I don't eat meat.
Okay, that's an easy one. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
Any country you want to visit if you get a chance?
Oh, so many. But we're going back to France soon, and I can't wait.
Um, which book you read this year that you will recommend?
Um, Actually, I am reading a book by Oliver Sacks called Musicophilia about people who have bizarre mental illnesses involving music.
Great.
It's pretty interesting.
Mental, yeah, there's a lot of mental issues with musicians or other people, right? Schumann is one of them. Um, what quality you look for when you hire a person, whether is technically or musically?
Oh,
It could be qualities.
if I'm looking for somebody to perform my music, obviously I'm looking for somebody who's a skilled musician, but it's important to me that they have heart, that they're real, genuine people who are able to bring out, you know, the inner part of our lives.
What's the secret of you marry so long?
Um, we have an awful lot in common, but Renee and I, it's hard work too. You have to put the work in to get along. I'm not easy to get along with.
I can tell.
Yeah.
Can tell. Uh, And what else? If you win tomorrow, you won. You win. You would win. I don't know how to say the tense. If tomorrow you
I win.
win, you win $25 million in the jackpot. What would you do with the money?
Uh, Actually, nothing much different than I do right now with my life because I like my life. And I would just probably record more music.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, if you have a choice, like you have $25 million, who would you like to work with other than Brad?
Other than Oh well, I'll definitely bring Brett along, and then we could do that with the New York Philharmonic or whoever, any
Yeah,
major orchestra would
yeah,
be.
yeah. Oh,
You know.
tell people. I also know him as a Brad. Tell people his last name so maybe they can look up him.
Oh, Brett Dubner, Deubner,
Deubner. What?
Ner.
Ner. Okay,
Right.
Brett.
And
Okay.
also, people should look up Ella and look up the Pandolfus Consort
Oh,
because they're
is
really
sorry.
a
Is
marvelous.
is Brett is Brent?
D, Brett Dubner, Deu.
No, I said his first name. How to
Yeah,
spell?
Brett.
Brett. Oh, that's two
Yeah,
T's. Okay.
yeah,
B
two T's.
R E. Uh, BRE. Okay. Can't see very well. Oh, okay. So here we go. I'm just giving you the name. Brett. Yeah, Ella. Check Ella's. Ella. Ella, you're from Vienna. I am going to Salzburg. Landed on next Monday, and to attend their last concert, the Salzburg uh, Music Festival. Yeah, yeah. So that's right. Nice. Are you there, Stanley?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right. So how
I'm on the
about
way.
yeah? How about last question? Um, coffee or tea?
What's that?
Coffee or tea?
Oh, both.
Both.
Just together.
Oh, one more question. Do you write music in the morning or evening?
I write music at any time.
Okay. Very dangerous.
Very dangerous, right? I'm fortunate. Another good thing about, you asked about Renee and our marriage is that I'm in the attic that I'm sitting in right now, and she's on another floor, and she's okay with me spending hours and hours on end up here,
Mm,
packing away, putting notes onto stabs.
yeah, that's good. That's good. No conflict. You're
Yeah,
in two different spaces.
she
That's
does her thing,
wonderful.
and I
Yeah,
do mine.
yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay, last word last words, right? Before we
Mhm.
close. You start first.
Last words, hoping that anybody's listening listens to some of the music, goes to my website. You can hear it all. And I hope you are moved by what you hear. My like any artist, we create things because we're full of feelings and thoughts, and they need to come out. And you want to share them with other people. What made me want to do this is when I was young, I'd be 10 years old, lying in the dark on my floor, listening to Bach and soaring away into the heavens. And I knew then I wanted to do and give like he did. Didn't matter if it happened in my lifetime or hundreds of years from now. But if somebody, sometime in the future, is, some poor troubled teenager listening to my music and gets a moment of solace, it'll be worth it because that's
Yeah,
what it's.
you're exposing to the next generation, or
Yeah,
hopefully, yeah, like your parents take you to Carnegie Hall. So exposure. So okay, great. Thank you so much. And my last words is, first of all, Stanley, thank you so much for talking with me. And I learned so much from you. And so I would definitely go to your concert, not in Toronto, but when you when you have concert in New York City,
We are.
please
That'd
let
be a
me.
delight.
Yeah, yeah, and I host this program on Wednesdays, and so please come back. And also, this session will be live on YouTube, so maybe people in audience right now, you can share with your friends and family, and liking our there's a button called like, and then there's also a button for subscribe. And also, very last words is, I am a filmmaker. I made uh, my Young Gun Diary recently, and the whole thing is shot on iPhone 11. So check my film out if you are, film buff, and I think you will enjoy my work. All right, so yeah, so we're going to
Quiet. Yeah,
hopefully see you, Stanley, again in the city, and then I'll see some of you on Clubhouse, and I'll wave at Ella from Salzburg to Vienna. Yeah. So yeah,
we can
great.
drink red wine together again.
Yeah, yeah, great. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being with me,
Thank you.
Stanley. Yeah. So we're going to close this and have a great weekend, great Wednesday. Be safe and be kind to each other. Thank you.
Absolutely.